When I first heard they were adapting Green Lantern into a TV series, it didn't so much as anger me as confuse me, because Green Lantern isn't meant for the silver screen, he's meant for the big screen in the movie theaters. Why would they give one of their most prominent characters a show instead of a movie? Imagine Green Lantern rivaling franchises like Star Wars and Dune, and why would they take the name Green out of the name Green Lanterns? It doesn't make sense because all the characters we want to see in live action are Green Lanterns. You know, Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz. These are all Green Lanterns. I've heard the writers say that they thought the name Green Lanterns was too stupid to be the title of a grounded DC show, which is already worrying me. So to me, it just seemed like a bad marketing decision, because why would you take one of the most popular DC IPs and make it into a TV show called Lanterns, a name that is not at all as recognizable as Green Lantern? Especially when many less popular IPs are rumored to get movies like Supergirl, Clayface, The Authority. That one might be canceled, but you get the point. And I have no problem with these characters. I have no problem with Supergirl. I think she's a great character in the comics. It's just that she's nowhere near as popular as Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. And then we got the first look at the casting for the show, with one image of Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre's Jon Stewart. And I thought, like many other people, this was just a casting announcement. Surely it wasn't going to take place on Earth. Of all places they could pick, they chose to take the space cops and put them on Earth. But no, this was a first look at the actual series, not just a casting announcement. Also, the casting of Kyle Chandler as Green Lantern isn't in itself a bad casting, but it just confuses me because he's older than the other main characters, Superman, Batman, even Jon Stewart will be in the actual DCU. It makes me think that they're trying to make Jon Stewart the main Green Lantern of the DCU, especially when Kyle Chandler has only been signed on for one series. Aaron Pierre, I believe, has also been signed on for movies, as well as other seasons of Lantern. However, with the trailer coming out, it looks like they have decided to take a grounded approach to Green Lantern. I'm sorry, does that not sound insane to anyone else? Do you know what a loss it is for DC to not market the show as Space Cops? The gritty, down-to-earth trailer we got does not look interesting. It does not look like the comics at all, for a number of reasons. Think about how much bank DC would have made if they had made this into a franchise like Star Wars or Dune. The emotional spectrum is one of the coolest ideas from DC, and I don't see them spending that much money to make DC show called Lanterns that isn't being very well marketed and give them the scope and scale that a show like this needs to have. Now, let's talk about the trailer itself. The character that Kyle Chandler is playing in the DCU, it's not Hal Jordan, for a number of reasons. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Chandler is a bad casting, and I really could see him as an older Hal Jordan. But recently, I've been getting into the Green Lantern comics, particularly the Geoff Johns run, which is absolutely insane and revolutionized Green Lantern as a character for basically all of its history since. Now, for those of you who don't read comics, during the era before the Geoff Johns run, many people viewed Hal Jordan as a assassinated character, because he was turned into the villain Parallax, which made a lot of people see Hal Jordan differently, because he'd essentially wiped out the entirety of the Green Lantern Corps. But the Geoff Johns era re-established him as a hero. This run also gave us the emotional spectrum and introduced things like the Sinestro Corps. Now, why do I bring this up? Because Hal Jordan during this era was one of the best written heroes in all of comics. It might be one of the best redemption arcs in all of DC Comics to date. And now Lanterns wants to portray an older version of Hal Jordan. While I would prefer a younger Hal Jordan as our main Green Lantern, I can understand why they would want Jon Stewart as the main Green Lantern. Let's be honest, most of the Justice League isn't exactly people of color, and I have no problem with that, but they are marketing to people who do care about that stuff. But the biggest problem I have is the characterization of the two Green Lanterns in this series. Hal Jordan just doesn't act the way that he does in this trailer. He's not some hero that's given up on the world, doesn't hang out with the other Green Lanterns, thinks they're all just stupid aliens. He doesn't treat Jon Stewart as some sort of secondary character. I don't think he's sworn in comics, at least that I've ever read, but that's not even the worst characterization in this show. Aaron Pierre is a great actor. I think he's great in everything I've ever seen him in. But the writing they gave his character as Jon Stewart is not how Jon Stewart would act at all. Jon Stewart has called Hal Jordan old and said all these things about Hal Jordan that he would just never say in the comics. And the fact that we've gotten 3 F-bombs dropped in a trailer of all things, it just shows the state that DCU is in right now. Now, I probably enjoyed Peacemaker Season 2 a lot more than most people, but I will never promote that show because of how disgusting it portrays characters in the DCU. The full-on orgy scene in the first episode to all the swearing and portrayal of PG-13 characters like Lex Luthor, it was just absolutely disgusting. And the odd sexual tension between Clark Kent and Lois Lane in Superman, it's just not something that should be in a Superman movie that is meant for all ages. In fact, all 3 of the DCU projects released so far have had this edgy tone towards them, and it's kind of hard to ignore the common theme between all of them, that being that James Gunn was involved in the project. Now, I really do like James Gunn as a director, as a writer. I think he does do good stuff, but I just don't appreciate what he's done to characters in the DCU. Here's the thing. I think James Gunn is incredibly good at casting great actors for the roles that he needs to be played in the DCU. I think Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor might be the best Lex Luthor we've ever seen in live action. And I think David Cornswet is pretty good casting too. I just don't appreciate how he treats Superman as this weak character with not as strong morals. And he just doesn't feel as grand as Henry Cavill Superman did. To me, one thing that the DCEU had going for itself was not only the great casting of Superman and Wonder Woman and even Batman, it also looked so real. Like, everything you saw on the screen really looked real. Particularly the suits, they all looked amazing. Superman, his suit was absolutely insane. I think, except for maybe Batman, he didn't really look that great. But the DCU has decided to make Superman look kind of fake in his costume. His costume doesn't fit his physique very well, and apparently that was on purpose. Now, I understand where everyone is coming from, saying they want their suits to look less textured and more comic accurate, but the thing is, comic accuracy doesn't look as great in live action as more textured suits do. I'm not saying like the lines or anything that are all on all these new suits is that great, but what I'm saying is that there do have to be made changes for live action, because Superman in the comics is just wearing a suit. We can't tell what texture it is. If you bring a spandex suit or some cloth suit to live action, it looks fake. You don't feel as impressed by Superman. It just doesn't feel like you take these characters seriously or these IPs seriously when you keep trying to make things different. Everyone wants to have their own interpretation of Superman, their own interpretation of Green Lantern, even though we've never seen a good comic accurate version of a live action Green Lantern ever. But that's the thing, everyone wants to leave their own legacy for these characters. And even Marvel now is starting to do things like this. The Fantastic Four was a pretty good movie in my opinion. I thought the casting was, that's one thing where the MCU is struggling right now with their casting. They're not casting as strong actors as DC is right now. But the suits in the Fantastic Four looked absolutely terrible. And now the DCU is starting to look a lot like MCU suits. It feels like all the good things about the DCEU are not going to be as good in the DCU. And I know I'm kind of rambling right now, but I just don't see the vision that James Gunn has been saying he's been having for the whole DCU. There's no coherent plan. We're going from Superman to the next live-action movie as Supergirl instead of like the Batman or a Green Lantern movie or literally anything related to Wonder Woman. Most DC characters right now, we've never seen a good live-action adaptation of all these characters. We have so many Supermans, we have so many Wonder Womans, we have so many Batmans, we have pretty much no good Flash, I don't know. We have no good Green Lantern adaptations. We have no good Aquaman interpretations, at least comic accurate interpretations. And it feels like Lanterns is just gonna follow this same path, especially with the more gritty, less colorful adaptation that James Gunn is going for. And I know James Gunn isn't attached to this project, he's not writing it, he's not directing it, but he did greenlight it. He greenlit a series that was called Lanterns instead of Green Lantern. He knew the story that was going to be told. He knew it would be more of a cop show, and he still greenlit it. I'm not saying that Lanterns is going to be bad. I don't know if Supergirl is going to be bad, but I do know that as of right now, the fans of DC are not going to be happy. I don't see how they're going to make DC profitable if they are not marketing their characters well, they're not representing their characters well, they're not building their own universe. I don't know where the DCU will go after Man of Tomorrow. I can't see it in my head as clearly as you can see new characters being introduced in the MCU. Because the MCU greenlit movies first and maybe like added a couple scenes here and there to maybe connect all the movies together and show there might be some other things going on there. But if they can't get their characters right in the end, then there won't be a DCU that can be marketable. I know a lot of people have been saying that the Lanterns teaser wasn't that bad, it was just a teaser. But a teaser is meant to tease what the show will be like. Why else would they release a teaser if not to get you hyped for the show? There's no other point to it. I just hope that I'm wrong and that Lanterns will actually be a good series. It's definitely not going to be comic accurate, especially with all the swearing we've seen in the 2 minutes we've gotten. But hopefully it'll tell a good story and it'll make these characters likable. I really hope they don't kill off Hal Jordan in his first decent casting in a DCU project, but I have a feeling they might, especially with that one throwaway line where he says he's going to be doing this until he dies, meaning he will probably die in this first season. But that's all I have. I really do want this series to do well, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I'll see you next time.